Commander Lisa Harper stood frozen at the center of the command bridge, her eyes fixed on the alien transmission displayed on the main screen. For 3 days, the massive vessel had hung at the edge of Earth's solar system, silent and watchful. Now the Universal Translation Matrix had finally decoded their message. Surrender your system to the Galactic Imperial Authority. Resistance will result in planetary cleansing. You have 24 Earth hours to comply. The words hung in the air. No one on the bridge of the ESS Defiant spoke. Lisa felt her heart beat faster as she gripped the armrests of her command chair. Her knuckles turned white. Replay the message, she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear pooling in her stomach. The message played again. The alien's face looked almost reptilian with scaled skin that shimmered under strange lights. Its 4 eyes blinked in an unnerving pattern. "Commander, what are our orders?" asked Communications Officer Frank Lee, breaking the heavy silence. Lisa took a deep breath. Humanity had spent decades preparing for first contact after discovering radio signals from distant stars. The Earth Space Force had been established as a precaution. Ships were built, weapons designed, soldiers trained. But no one had expected their first meeting with aliens to be an empire demanding they surrender. "Send the diplomatic response package," Lisa ordered, the one prepared for hostile contact scenarios, and alert all ESF vessels to move to defensive positions around Earth, Mars, and the Moon. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Daniel Wright, looked up from his console. His face was pale, but his hands moved quickly over the controls. "Commander, Admiral Carter is requesting permission to activate the Artemis Protocol," Daniel said. The bridge went silent again. Everyone knew what the Artemis Protocol meant. It was humanity's last resort defensive strategy, developed in secret, over 15 years. It had never been tested in actual combat conditions. If activated, there would be no turning back. Lisa hesitated. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders. Was this the right call? Should they try more? Diplomatic approaches first, but the alien message had been clear: surrender or die. "Permission granted," she finally said, "and may God help us all." The order raced through secure channels across the solar system. On every military base, in every colony, the highest alert level flashed on screens. Hidden weapons platforms powered up, their locations known only to a handful of military leaders. Experimental warships emerged from camouflaged docks hidden in the asteroid belt. Deep beneath the lunar surface, the quantum particle cannon, humanity's most closely guarded secret, began its charging sequence. On the Mars colony, Dr. Alan Foster was having dinner with his wife when his neural implant chimed with the emergency alert. The small device implanted behind his ear flashed a red code that made his blood run cold. "What is it?" asked his wife Judy, seeing his face change. Alan pushed his plate away. As the lead developer of adaptive combat algorithms for the Earth Defense Network, he knew exactly what the alert meant. "I have to go to the lab. Now." He kissed his wife goodbye, hoping it wouldn't be for the last time. "Stay in the shelter areas if the alarms sound." The research facility was already buzzing with activity when Alan arrived. Scientists and military personnel rushed through the hallways. In the main lab, his team had gathered around the central computer system. "Status report," Alan demanded as he entered. "The alien vessel is massive, sir," said his assistant, Greg Powell. "Our scans show it's nearly the size of Earth's moon. Energy readings are off the charts." Alan nodded grimly. "Deploy the swarm units, all of them." The swarm was his life's work. Nanite clouds developed to be the perfect counter to advanced technology. Each nanite was smaller than a grain of dust, but contained sophisticated programming. Together they could penetrate hull materials and reprogram systems from within. "All units, sir." "We haven't tested the full deployment yet," Greg warned. "If we don't use them now, we might not get another chance," Alan replied. In space, aboard the ESS Defiant, Commander Lisa Harper watched the alien vessel with growing dread. 6 hours had passed since they'd activated the Artemis Protocol. The alien ship hadn't responded to their diplomatic messages. Instead, it had moved closer to Earth. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Commander, reported Weapons Officer Samantha Green. All ships maintain positions, Lisa ordered over the fleet channel. Do not fire unless fired upon. The words had barely left her mouth when the alien vessel released a burst of energy. The beam cut through space and hit the outlying defense platforms orbiting Neptune. The platforms, each the size of a small building, simply vanished. They fired on our defenses, Samantha shouted. Lisa's jaw tightened. All ships, defensive maneuvers, deploy countermeasures. The ESS Defiant shuddered as its engines pushed it into evasive action. Across the solar system, Earth ships scattered following pre-programmed patterns designed to confuse enemy targeting. The alien vessel fired again, destroying 3 more defense platforms with casual ease. Its size made it seem slow, but its weapons moved with frightening speed. But as the debris cleared, something unexpected happened. From hidden launchers throughout the solar system, thousands of tiny objects sped toward the massive ship. Alan, Foster's nanite clouds, each programmed to seek out specific systems and disable them. Swarm units deployed, Daniel reported. Impact in 15 seconds. The bridge crew held their breath. This was untested technology against an unknown enemy. If it failed, the nanites hit the alien vessel and seemed to vanish inside its hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then sections of the ship began to go dark. Weapon ports closed. Energy readings fluctuated. It's working, Lisa whispered. The alien ship fired again, but its beam went wide, missing the Earth vessels entirely. More systems across its surface flickered and died. On Earth, in homes and shelters, people looked up at the night sky. Strange lights flashed among the stars, explosions visible even from the planet's surface. News reports spoke of alien contact, of an attack, of humanity fighting back. When dawn broke over North America the next day, the battle still raged. The Earth Space Force had launched its main attack fleet, targeting the now vulnerable sections of the alien vessel. The quantum cannon on the moon had fired its first shot, tearing a hole through the enemy ship's command section. In his lab on Mars, Alan Foster watched the data streams with growing hope. His nanites were working better than expected, spreading through the alien vessel like a virus. Commander Lisa Harper stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching as humanity's combined forces fought the invader to a standstill. The first battle between humanity and the Galactic Empire had begun, and against all odds, humanity was holding its own. General Eric Nelson walked slowly around the large holographic display in the center of the Earth United Defense Council chamber. The 3-dimensional map showed the positions of human and alien ships throughout the solar system. Red dots marked destroyed enemy vessels. There were many red dots. 3 weeks, Eric said, his voice filled with quiet pride. 3 weeks since they arrived, and we're not just surviving. We're winning. The other 12 members of the council watched him, in silence. Some looked shocked, others pleased. The alien invasion had united Earth's nations and colonies in a way nothing else could have. How is that possible? Asked diplomatic liaison Karen Mills, breaking the silence. She pointed at the alien flagship still holding position near Jupiter. According to everything we've learned, they have technology centuries beyond ours. Their ships can travel between stars. Their weapons can destroy planets. Eric smiled grimly. Because they expected us to be primitive. Their entire empire has been built on subjugating pre-FTL civilizations, species that haven't yet developed, faster than light travel. But we're not like the others they've conquered. Karen studied the battle projections. Small blue dots, human ships, swarmed around the larger red ones like angry bees attacking bears. The adaptive systems are working. That well? She asked. Better than we hoped, Eric confirmed. He tapped a control, and the display zoomed in on the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Captain John Kelly's guerrilla tactics in the asteroid belt have been devastatingly effective. His ships hide among the rocks, strike quickly, and disappear before the enemy can respond. We've captured 4 of their scout ships intact. The council murmured in approval. Captured alien technology was worth more than gold now. And what of Dr. Foster's systems? Asked the representative from the Mars colonies. Eric zoomed the display again, showing a close-up view of an alien destroyer. Tiny blue specks swarmed around it, entering through hull breaches and ventilation systems. Dr. Foster's combat AI learns from every encounter, Eric explained. The nanites adapt to the aliens' countermeasures faster than they can develop them. Each wave we send becomes more effective than the last. In a research facility carved into the lunar landscape, scientists and engineers worked day and night to understand the alien technology. The facility was one of the most secure locations in the solar system, built to withstand direct attacks. Leading the research team was Dr. Susan Taylor, a woman whose sharp mind and background in quantum physics had helped develop humanity's most advanced weapons. Susan stood before a disassembled alien engine, her eyes tired but focused. She hadn't slept properly in days, but the work was too important to stop. Their FTL drives are surprisingly inefficient, she noted as she examined components from a captured vessel. They generate enormous power, but waste most of it. It's like they took a working design and just kept making it bigger without improving it. Her assistant, Paul Rogers, nodded. I've noticed the same thing with their weapon systems. They're standardized across all ships, from the smallest scouts to the largest dreadnoughts, just scaled up or down in size. They have no concept of rapid iteration, Susan realized. No drive to constantly improve. That's our advantage, Paul said. We've had to fight for every technological step. We've had to be clever. They've been the biggest kids on the block for so long they've gotten lazy. Susan's neural implant chimed with an incoming message. Admiral Carter wanted an update on the reverse engineering efforts. She sighed. There was no time to rest, not when humanity's future hung in the balance. Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid belt, Captain John Kelly's ship, the ESS Valiant, moved silently between the spinning rocks. The Valiant was one of Earth's newest ships, built with stealth technology that made it nearly invisible to sensors. Its hull was painted black, absorbing rather than reflecting light. On the bridge, John studied the sensor readings. Another Imperial scout vessel had entered the area, searching for the humans who had been causing so much trouble. Perfect, John said, smiling at his weapons officer. They're following the exact patrol route we predicted. Ready to fire on your command, the weapons officer replied. John waited until the alien ship passed behind a large asteroid, braking. Its line of sight with the rest of the Imperial fleet. Fire. The Valiant released a spread of revolutionary phase-shift missiles that appeared to exist in multiple states simultaneously. The alien ship's shields had been calibrated to stop conventional weapons. Solid projectiles, energy beams, even the nanite clouds that had proven so effective in early battles. But these new weapons simply passed through the shields as if they weren't there, then solidified inside the enemy vessel. The alien ship's engines died instantly. It drifted, powerless, in the void. Another one for the collection, John transmitted, to command, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. Boarding teams prepare to capture the vessel, remember. We want prisoners and technology intact. As his crew prepared to board the disabled ship, John reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Intercepted communications indicated the Imperial main fleet was still 3 months out. The aliens had been so confident in their technological superiority that they hadn't bothered to send more than an advance force to deal with Earth. They never expected to need reinforcements for a primitive world, John murmured to himself. That arrogance might be the one thing that would save humanity. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Maria Gonzalez prepared to address the United Nations Security Council. The facility had been built during the old Cold War and expanded over decades, designed to survive even nuclear attacks. Now it served as humanity's central command in a war against an enemy far more dangerous than any human adversary. Maria reviewed her notes one last time before entering the chamber, where representatives from every major nation waited. Their faces showed the strain of weeks of war, but also something else: hope. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria began, her voice calm and steady, I bring good news from the front. Our forces continue to hold the line against the Imperial advance. More than that, we have begun to push them back. She activated a holographic display similar to the one General Nelson had used earlier. Have confirmed reports that other species within the Empire are watching our resistance with great interest, she continued. Our intelligence suggests that some have even begun quiet rebellions of their own. The representatives murmured among themselves. This was unexpected news. Humanity is not just fighting for our survival, Maria said, her voice rising with conviction. We may be sparking a revolution across the galaxy. For thousands of years, the Empire has ruled through fear and overwhelming force. We are showing the galaxy that they can be defeated. A representative from Japan raised his hand. And what of the cost, Madam President? The casualties? Maria's expression sobered. Every loss is one too many. But the casualties have been far fewer than our worst projections. The enemy underestimated us. They came expecting an easy victory over primitive savages. Instead, they found a unified planet ready to fight for its freedom. As Maria continued her address, new reports arrived from the front lines. Human ships had pushed back another Imperial attempt to establish a foothold on Mars. The lunar defenses had repelled a direct assault on the research facilities, and in the asteroid belt, Captain Kelly had captured another alien vessel. Humanity had been backed into a corner, fighting for its very existence. But from that desperate position, they had found strength the Empire couldn't understand. The strength of a species that had spent its entire history fighting to survive, competing, adapting, and overcoming every challenge thrown its way. War was far from over, but for the first time since the massive alien ship had appeared at the edge of the solar system, humanity dared to believe they might actually win. High Admiral Zekthar stood tall on the command deck of his flagship, the Imperial Devastator. His scaled skin shimmered under the blue lights of the enormous bridge. Unlike human vessels, where space was used efficiently, Imperial ships were built to impress. High ceilings, wide corridors, and the command deck was the size of a small human stadium. But today, the grand space felt like a prison to Zekthar. He paced back and forth, his clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. His four eyes blinked in an irregular pattern, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The situation is becoming increasingly embarrassing, he hissed to his circle of advisors. What should have been a routine subjugation has turned into a military disaster. No one spoke. No one dared. Failure in the Galactic Empire was often punished by death, and everyone on the bridge knew they were failing. Cathar stopped in front of the main view screen. It showed the human solar system, with red markers indicating where Imperial ships had been destroyed. There were far too many red markers. These humans, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, are like nothing we've encountered in 12,000 cycles. They adapt faster than we can respond. On the screen, live footage showed another Imperial dreadnought exploding as human vessels swarmed around it like insects. The human ships were small, agile craft that could change their energy signatures at will, confusing Imperial targeting systems. One moment they appeared as warships, the next as pieces of space debris, then as something else entirely. Our sensors cannot lock onto them, complained the weapons officer. They change faster than our systems can adjust. And those tiny machines, added the science officer, referring to the nanite clouds that had proven so devastating. They're in everything now. We find them in our food, our water systems, our computer terminals. Nothing is safe. Zekthar's inner eyelids closed briefly, a gesture similar to a human closing their eyes in pain. The Emperor will have our heads, he said simply. Back on Earth, in a hardened bunker beneath the ruins of what had once been downtown Chicago, Dr. Olivia Clark worked with single-minded focus. The surface of the city had taken a direct hit during the second week of the war, but the underground facilities remained intact. Now they served as one of humanity's most important research centers. Olivia barely noticed the distant rumble of another bombing run. The bunker was deep enough that the Imperial attacks were just background noise. Her attention was fixed on the holographic display in front of her, showing the complex mathematics of the wormhole disruptor she was finalizing. If we adjust the phase variance here, she said, pointing to a section of the equations, we can increase the disruptive effect by at least 30%. Her assistant Ryan Miller nodded and made the adjustments. At just 28, Ryan was one of the youngest quantum physicists on the team, but his brilliant mind had earned him a place at the forefront of humanity's most ambitious weapon project yet. "That's impressive," he said, watching the simulation results change. "But will it be enough to collapse an Imperial wormhole? Their stabilization technology is like nothing we've seen before." Olivia smiled grimly. "That's the beauty of it, Ryan. We're not trying to overpower their technology. We're using their own methods against them." She pointed to another section of the display. "See these equations? They're derived from the Imperial FTL drive we captured last week. We're not fighting against their stabilization methods, we're reversing them." Ryan's eyes widened as he understood. "So instead of trying to disrupt a stable wormhole, we're making it super stable," Olivia finished. "So stable that it collapses under its own gravitational forces." It was an approach only humans would have thought of. The Imperial scientists working within rigid hierarchical structures might take centuries to consider such a counterintuitive solution. But humans, faced with destruction, had learned to think in ways the Empire couldn't predict. "If this works," Olivia told Ryan as she finalized the programming, "we can isolate the Imperial forces already in our system and deal with them piece by piece." In lunar orbit, Admiral William Johnson stood on the bridge of the ESS Concordia, the largest human vessel ever built. Still tiny compared to Imperial dreadnoughts, the Concordia made up for its size with revolutionary technology reverse-engineered from captured alien ships. William was a tall man with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much death in the past months. His uniform was simple. The elaborate decorations that had once marked military rank had been abandoned in favor of practicality. "Status of the wormhole disruptor?" he asked his second-in-command. "Dr. Clark reports it's ready for deployment, sir. Energy levels at maximum. Targeting systems locked on the Imperial wormhole near Jupiter." William nodded. His fleet had positioned itself carefully over the past week, each ship finding hiding places in the debris fields that now orbited the moon, the remains of earlier battles. They were ready to ambush the Imperial forces that would be stranded when their supply lines were cut. "All ships prepare for Operation Thunderstrike," William ordered through the fleet-wide communication system. "Maintain stealth protocols until the disruptor has fired. Then hit them with everything we've got." On the lunar surface, the massive disruptor powered up. Built into the side of a crater, the weapon looked like a giant satellite dish, but the technology inside was unlike anything humanity had possessed before the war. It drew power from a dozen fusion reactors, channeling it through alien crystals that had been reprogrammed to serve human needs. The disruptor fired a beam of exotic particles that human science hadn't even had names for 4 months ago. The beam tore through subspace, invisible to normal eyes but creating ripples in reality itself. It struck the artificial wormhole the Empire had established near Jupiter, their lifeline to the Imperial core worlds. The effect was immediate. The wormhole, which had appeared as a shimmering distortion in space, suddenly flared bright. Its edges contracted, then expanded, then contracted again. The Imperial ships nearby attempted to stabilize it, pouring energy into the failing portal. But it was too late. The wormhole collapsed with a final flash of light, leaving nothing but empty space. 30 Imperial vessels suddenly found themselves cut off from reinforcement and resupply. "Wormhole collapse confirmed," reported the sensor officer on the Concordia. "All Imperial vessels in the system are now isolated." William allowed himself a small smile. "Commence attack. All ships, execute your assigned targeting protocols." Human vessels appeared from hidden positions throughout the solar system, their weapons configured to match the specific vulnerabilities discovered in each class of Imperial ship. The surprise was complete. Imperial vessels, still reeling from the shock of losing their wormhole, found themselves under attack from all sides. On Mars, Colony Governor Patricia Lewis received the news in her underground command center. The Red Planet had suffered heavily in the early days of the war, with Imperial forces attempting to establish a ground presence. But the colonists had fought back with determination born of necessity. "Governor, we're receiving word that the Imperial ground forces at Olympus Base have surrendered," reported her communications officer. Patricia nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. The colony's automated defense systems, inspired by the simple but effective nest defense mechanisms of Earth's social insects, had overwhelmed the standardized Imperial battle protocols. The aliens had never encountered enemies that could change tactics so quickly, adapting new strategies for each encounter. "Accept their surrender," she ordered. "Treat the prisoners according to the protocols we established, and send word to Earth that Mars is secure." Across the solar system, the tide had turned. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival had become something else, a war that humanity was winning. In just 7 months, they had gone from discovering they weren't alone in the universe to defeating the advanced forces of a 12,000-year-old empire. But even as they celebrated these victories, the leaders of Earth knew the real test was yet to come. The empire spanned thousands of star systems, millions of ships, billions of soldiers. This was just the first wave. Still, for the first time, they allowed themselves to believe that humanity might not just survive this war, but emerge from it stronger than before. United by a common threat, the people of Earth and its colonies had accomplished the impossible. And in the depths of space, as Imperial ships burned and human vessels claimed more victories, a message traveled through the Empire's communication networks, a warning that would change the way the Empire saw its place in the galaxy. Beware the humans. They are not like the others. 1 year after the first alien ship appeared in Earth's solar system, a small diplomatic vessel approached Earth under a flag of truce. Unlike the massive warships that had attacked before, this ship was sleek and decorated with symbols of the Galactic Empire in gold and blue. Earth's defense systems tracked the vessel carefully. Weapons remained locked on it from the moment it entered the system. After a year of brutal war, no one trusted the Empire's intentions. "Hold fire but maintain targeting," ordered Admiral Sophia Anderson from her command center in orbit. A veteran of dozens of battles over the past year, Sophia had risen through the ranks as other officers fell. Her face bore a scar from an Imperial attack that had nearly killed her 3 months ago. "Let's hear what they have to say." The Imperial vessel transmitted its request to land at the neutral meeting ground that had been prepared in Geneva, Switzerland. Once the diplomatic center of old Earth, Geneva had been rebuilt after suffering damage in the early days of the war. Now it served as humanity's face to the stars. Inside the United Nations headquarters, representatives of humanity gathered in the Grand Hall. Military officers in their dress uniforms stood alongside civilian leaders from every nation and colony. All showed signs of the difficult year they had endured. Tired eyes, tense postures, some with visible injuries. President Maria Gonzalez took her place at the center of the human delegation. At her side stood General Eric Nelson, Admiral Sophia Anderson, and Chief Scientists Dr. Alan Foster and Dr. Olivia Clark. They represented the military and scientific achievements that had saved humanity from destruction. "Remember," Maria told them quietly as they waited, "we are negotiating from a position of strength. The Empire called for this meeting, not us." The doors at the far end of the hall opened. Imperial High Emissary Vrkash entered, flanked by 4 guards in ornate armor. The alien was tall, nearly 7 feet, with the same reptilian features as those humans had seen in the first transmission so long ago. His scaled skin was a deep blue with gold patterns that marked his high rank. Vrkash approached the center of the room, stopping 10 feet from the human delegation. He looked distinctly uncomfortable as he faced them. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, darting around the room as if expecting an attack. "The Imperial Authority extends greetings to the representatives of Earth," he said. His voice was translated by a small device at his throat, giving his words a slightly mechanical quality. "We come in peace to discuss terms, the United Nations." "Of Earth welcomes you, emissary," President Gonzalez replied formally. "We are prepared to hear what you have to say." Vrkash straightened himself, seeming to gather his courage. For an empire that had ruled unchallenged for 12,000 years, this moment was unprecedented. "The Imperial Authority has—" He paused, clearly struggling with what he needed to say. "Reassessed the status of your species." The human delegation remained silent, waiting. They had learned that patience could be a weapon too. We propose an immediate cessation of hostilities, Prakash continued, his voice growing steadier. A formal end to the conflict between our civilizations. Admiral Anderson, representing Earth's military forces, leaned forward slightly. Her eyes were sharp and focused. "And what are your terms for this cessation?" she asked. The emissary's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of tension. "The Empire will recognize the Sol system and all its planets as sovereign territory belonging to humanity. We will withdraw all Imperial forces within 50 light-years of your system." Murmurs broke out among the human delegation. This was more than they had expected. Not just peace, but a significant buffer zone around Earth. "And what do you ask in return?" President Gonzalez questioned, her voice calm despite the momentous nature of the discussion. "In return, we ask only one thing," Prakash replied. The room grew silent again, everyone waiting for the Empire's demand. "That you stay within your borders, that you do not—" The alien seemed to struggle for words, his translator clicking as it searched for the right term. "Expand." The human delegation exchanged glances. They had intercepted enough Imperial communications over the past year to understand what wasn't being said. The Empire was terrified of humanity. "We will need to discuss these terms," President Gonzalez said after a moment. "If you will wait, we can provide our initial response today, though formal agreements will require more time." The emissary nodded stiffly and was escorted to a waiting area while the human delegation moved to a secure conference room. Later that evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt skyline of Geneva, Earth's leadership gathered in that conference room to discuss the Imperial offer. The walls were lined with screens showing data from across the solar system, defense readiness, production levels, scientific projects in progress. "They're scared of us," said General Nelson, saying out loud what everyone was thinking. A species that went from atmospheric flight to defeating their advance fleet in less than 2 centuries. Dr. Foster nodded, setting down his tablet with the analysis of Imperial communications they had intercepted. "According to the data we've gathered, most species take millennia to achieve what we've done in decades. Our rate of technological advancement is unprecedented in their experience. And our adaptability," added Dr. Taylor, who had joined them from her lunar research facility. Her team had made incredible advances by studying captured Imperial technology. "The Empire's technology has barely changed in thousands of years. They have no concept of rapid iteration or battlefield adaptation. When we changed our tactics, they didn't know how to respond." Admiral Anderson looked thoughtful. "If we accept this deal, we buy ourselves time to build, to prepare, to advance our technology even further. But we also leave countless other species under Imperial rule," pointed out a representative from the Mars colonies. "Species that have been watching our resistance, perhaps hoping for their own freedom." President Gonzalez had remained silent, listening to the different perspectives. Now she stood and walked to the large star map displayed on the main screen. It showed the galaxy as they now understood it from Imperial records. Millions of stars, thousands of inhabited worlds. The Empire's territory was marked in red, covering nearly a third of the galaxy. Earth was just a tiny blue dot at the edge. "The galaxy is vast," she said, studying the map. "Filled with life, with civilizations we've never dreamed of. Some free, many subjugated by the Empire." She turned to face the others. "We'll agree to their terms," she said finally. "For now, we need time to prepare, to build our forces, but not for conquest." Admiral Anderson understood immediately. "For liberation." The president nodded. "Exactly. We've already received covert communications from 12 subjugated species. They've been watching us, learning from us. The Empire doesn't realize it yet, but their days of unchallenged dominance are over." Dr. Foster smiled slightly. "So we accept peace, but prepare for the next phase. We do what humans have always done," President Gonzalez said. "We adapt, we evolve, and we help others do the same." 2 days later, The diplomatic agreement was formalized in a ceremony broadcast throughout Earth and its colonies. Humans everywhere watched as their leaders signed peace terms with the empire that had tried to destroy them. There were celebrations in the streets, but also a sense of quiet determination. This wasn't just the end of a war, it was the beginning of something greater. As news of the agreement spread throughout the galaxy, carried by Imperial communications networks and secret channels alike, rumors began to take shape. Stories of the humans who had fought the Empire to a standstill. Species that had been subjugated for millennia began to whisper about the possibility of freedom. Some bolder ones sent secret messages to Earth, seeking guidance, advice, technology. Earth responded cautiously but positively to these requests. Small stealth ships began to slip past the 50-light-year boundary, making contact with resistance movements on distant worlds. Human advisors taught alien freedom fighters the tactics that had proven so effective against Imperial forces. Engineers shared designs for weapons that could confuse Imperial targeting systems. And in the Imperial Palace on the distant world of Thrax Prime, the Emperor himself, a being who had ruled for over 500 years, reviewed the reports with growing concern. His advisors stood nervously around his massive throne, each afraid to be the bearer of bad news. "So we have peace with these humans," the Emperor said, his voice like grinding stones. But reports indicate increased resistance activity in the Orion sector, in the Cygnus Arm, in the Perseus Transit, all using tactics similar to those employed by humans. "A coincidence, Most Radiant One," suggested his chief advisor, not believing his own words. The Emperor's 6 eyes narrowed. "I have not ruled for 5 centuries by believing in coincidences. These humans are spreading their poison throughout our realm, even while honoring the letter of our agreement." "What shall we do, Most Radiant One?" asked the military high command. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, considering options that had never before been necessary in the 12,000-year history of the Empire. Increase our forces along the human border, strengthen our hold on key systems, and distribute this directive to all Imperial forces throughout the galaxy. The directive was transmitted to every Imperial ship, base, and outpost.